Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I'm Sean Butler. Bugsy Malone, believe it or not, is under that bush. She's been under that bush here. It's a very thin bush. I can't get her out. Pause. I'm not sure what she's doing in there. The ball's in there. I think she's looking for it or she's digging a hole or something. But you know what? It gives me the time to be able to get this transfer update to you guys. I hope you're all happy enough for doing the things you love. Would you do me a favour, guys? Smash the like button if you enjoy these things. Your like game is incredibly strong and I really appreciate it. It helps push this stuff out to maybe more Tottenham fans or fans of football that are interested in what's going on around the aggregators, the Twitter sphere and the journalists around their thoughts on Tottenham's transfer policy. So we've got a few things to get through today, so I'm going to hurry her up. Guys, we're going to start with an update around Evan Ferguson. Now, John Wenham has come out and said that people are sleeping, quote, people are sleeping on Evan Ferguson and that the striker stock is low. John Wenham being a kind of a youth football specialist, I guess. He likes to talk about Tottenham's youth team a lot more than other teams as far as I'm aware, but he also keeps his eye out and obviously has his stances on the youthful talent around the world of football. And he's reminding us that Evan Ferguson was a £100 million quote that we were shown for his services a couple of years ago when the player was 18 and his breakthrough season had a fantastic time. Since then, Brighton obviously changed their manager, they've changed their style of football a little bit, and they have also had a sort of different approach to their transfer policies, a different approach to the way that they look for, or the sort of profile of player that they're working with in the front line. And Evan Ferguson has been a kind of victim of that a little bit. A lot of injuries as well that haven't helped him along the way. Now, people are kind of sleeping on him, according to John Wenham. People have almost forgotten the name, and to a degree, I think that's probably right. We were all talking about him all the time a couple of years ago, and now he's not really on the first name on everyone's lips when you think about potential signings. But a bad player does not become overnight if you were a good player just a couple of years ago. Obviously, injuries are a factor here, guys, and also, form is temporary, class is permanent. Well, which is it with him? We don't know really. We haven't got a big enough sample size to know. I'm a big fan of the player. £100 million, no thank you. If there was a way to get a deal done at a far more reasonable price, then I think that there might be some interest there on the behalf of Tottenham. It's obviously clear to me, though, that when you look at these names that we're going through at the moment, and there's a couple of names here that I haven't mentioned before, or one specifically, that if there's any truth to this one, then it's tantalising stuff. Now, obviously, I doubt that this one is a plausible solution, considering who we're up against and obviously what the cost would be. But when we get to it, I could make a story for you that make sense if there was willingness on the part of the club and the player. And obviously there's a way maybe that we could think about with FFP and PSR, just the fact that Tottenham Hotspur are in a healthy position financially, healthier than most, that maybe we could battle with for the signature of this player by outbidding, outpricing the competition. And if you haven't already guessed the name, I'll save it for you, but the competition for his signature is a major rival of ours, and it would be a sweet little thing to disrupt. Let's just finish off on Evan Ferguson, though. For me, listen, I like the guy. I do like the player. I think he sort of suits our system. A fully fit Evan Ferguson, big, strong, strapping, tall, not sluggish, can play off both feet, can find the corner. A very, very good, talented prospect. But it all depends on the structure of the deal. There's rumours that Tottenham don't want to sort of do a loan unless it's with an obligation or with a fairly priced option, because they don't really want to have to develop a player just to hand him back in 6 months' time of a rival, if you consider Brighton a rival. And I think it's fair to say where we're at and where they are that you probably would consider them a rival right now. Either way, I'm not sure it would happen. I just don't think there's enough clarity around the guy's fitness and his form and what level we're really getting here. Was he a player that kind of came out of the trap strong in his career and then has subsequently fallen by the wayside a little bit, not necessarily just because of injuries or just because of a changing manager, but also because maybe there's a lack of effort on the training ground or things that maybe we're not seeing or privy to. I'm not suggesting that there is, I'm just suggesting that there might be. Let's move on from Evan Ferguson. Ali Gold came out and talked about the transfer window priorities as he sees it. He says that there's a defensive priority and that it's a versatile player would be ideal. A left back and a left-sided centre-back, similar to Micky Van De Ven in the ability to do both. And for me, I don't mind that at all. That's, I think, one of the reasons why we were looking at Hiroki Ito, the injured Bayern Munich player from Japan, ex-Stuttgart, a player I brought to your attention a long time ago, a really, really cool player. I've always liked this guy, but he went to Bayern Munich and had a horrible injury. I don't even think he's played a minute there. But he is versatile in that regard. People were confusing, I believe, Ito for Ko Itakura, because I think that I was seeing some things yesterday where people suggesting that Ko Itakura can play left back and left-sided centre-back, and as far as I'm aware, he's never played as a full-back in his life. He's only ever played as a centre-back, either on the right side or the left side, and he's even a right-footed centre-back. So the idea of him playing left-back wouldn't make any sense to me. But Koitakura is obviously on the list. We've spoken about him a few times, so I'm not going to bang on about that one anymore. But as I say, David Hanko as well, another player from Feyenoord that I'm a massive fan of. I love Feyenoord's team, squad players. It's interesting though, Feyenoord never really do that well at the highest level of European football, so you have to always take it with a pinch of salt around the strength of the links, and also whether or not there's a strength of real interest from Tottenham, because we don't really sign that many players from Dutch football, and there might be a reason for it if there's a doubt, a questionable kind of step up narrative, which we talk about all the time. So we're not going to bang on about that one either, because we've got so much more to talk about. Let's move on, guys. Here's the big one for you. How about this one? 25-year-old, 30 GA this season already, Egyptian Frankfurt superstar Omar Marmoush. I know what you're saying. What are we doing here, Sean? What are we doing here? Look, I'm just telling you what's in the news, and it's not in the kind of the aggregators that don't carry any weight. This one is something that started out by I forget which journalist it was, a German journalist. It wasn't our Plattenberg man who talks about Bayern Munich and comes with a bit of weight, but it was someone that is familiar with the situation in Frankfurt. He does say, of course, that Arsenal are the number one sort of desirers, if you like, the desirees of the player, and that they're trying to figure something out. Now, obviously, I think on a straight bat for bat, pound for pound tussle for the player, then I think Arsenal would probably make the most sense, right? Omar Marmoush is probably going to want to go to a team that has the highest chance of success in England, and there's obviously a fit there for the player in that squad. Arsenal fans have been making the argument for years that they've overlooked and completely deprioritised the most important piece of their jigsaw, which would be a proven goal scorer to go in there and just kind of finish off the plentiful moves that they create. However, what I would say, guys, don't forget, not that we on this channel ever allow you to forget, but a lot of you maybe take it with a pinch of salt that there's any teeth to the bite to the notion of PSR and FFP, but we'll find out in a week's time. I think it's on January the 13th, who, if any, of the clubs are right up against FFP from last year's situation, and then therefore by proxy what the situation will be looking forward going into the end of this particular season, and what that might mean for the types of budgets that they have for both January and for the summer. And of course, Arsenal are the number 2 at-risk team. Chelsea are the highest priority profile team that might be under severe risk of breaches. But Arsenal are number 2, Newcastle number 3, and I think Aston Villa were number 4. And so consequently, Bugs, get the ball out then, mate. So consequently, there's an idea that if you're talking about signing Omar Marmoush and Arsenal are already up against FFP and PSR frameworks, then are they really going to be able to find the money to be able to put together a deal for Omar Marmoush? Now, I'm just talking about obviously cash only. There's obviously ways that Arsenal might be able to raise funds by selling certain players that they don't need. But January is a very difficult window to do business anyway, especially if you think about you only have 25 days left. Obviously, if there is a desire for Frankfurt to cash in on their superstar, then are they going to have time to figure out what their replacement is? Do they have that sort of thing lined up already? Is there rumours that Santiago Jimenez might make the transition to Frankfurt? Those sorts of things could happen if they were to sell the guy. But I'm just sitting here saying, listen, Tottenham definitely wants some sort of support in that regard. Maybe if they can't get Kolo Muani, maybe they might turn their attentions to someone like him. If we're able to put together a sort of a financial package that we're looking at those sorts of calibre players, 60 million euros is the transfer market valuation. Bugsy, shut up! Of Omar Marmoush, but given that I don't think he's under any contractual, I don't believe from memory that his contract is up anytime soon, and so maybe there's a way that you could sit there as Tottenham, and it's Daniel Levy, so I doubt that we're going to really entertain this, but I'm just putting it out there, see if we can get some sort of commentary back from you guys. How crazy, how deluded am I? But I sit there and make the argument and say, first and foremost, you can compete with Arsenal financially. Arsenal maybe are up against the FFP, Tottenham aren't. If Frankfurt are looking for the best price, the best bang for their buck, and the best ability to create a budget that they can then go and replace that guy with to continue with their own plans, then obviously money talks. And I think that money is the only way that we could necessarily possibly compete with Frankfurt on this regard. Bugsy! Anyway, I'll leave Omar Marmoush there. I think that's Bugsy's way of saying, Sean, it's a ridiculous story. Let's move on. Just for what it's worth, though, 30 GA this year, 18 goals already. And for Frankfurt, the man has got 53 GA in 65 appearances. Quite sensational. Let's move on, guys. KHUSANOV, again, the links continue. Tottenham are apparently at the front of the queue possibly for this guy, alongside teams like Manchester City, Real Madrid. Listen, I'm happy to sit here and acknowledge that I might, I often get players' reads wrong. I said I retract the whole Jonathan David thing. I spent 2.5 years telling you all I don't value the guy, I don't rate him, I don't understand why he gets it. Now the penny's dropped. Now I've seen a different sort of style to the player this year, and I'm happy to reverse it. With KHUSANOV, I maintain this idea that he is a pace merchant and he looks like he's a good slider. He has some good tackling and some good clearance stats. But I still don't necessarily see why there's all this hype about him outside of the fact that he's young and he's fast and he might suit a lot of systems that require that high line and therefore defensive things. Until I saw a stat, which I'll throw up on the screen, a comparison of the games played and the minutes played this season between him, Van De Ven and Romero that are all similar in terms of number of minutes played, and the overarching number of sliding tackles per match, clearances, blocks, and interceptions, alongside the fact that this guy is a pace merchant. I think the penny has dropped for me a little bit as to why, it makes more sense to think that maybe there is something there, and that you're not just buying potential with pace, you're also buying a guy whose stats do stand up against what we have and what we consider, I think, as Tottenham fans to be, good, solid, top draw centre-backs in Van De Ven and Romero, and yet the stats this year suggest that this guy does the A, Bs and Cs of defending at a higher standard, at least in the relative leagues, comparable to our number one, number two centre-backs. And so, listen, at 20 million euros is the apparent asking price, then maybe it makes more sense than over four given. So I'm happy to kind of let this one play out and almost retract my sort of dismissal of the value of this one, because maybe the stats that I hadn't seen before and the highlight reels maybe are all just a little bit kind of... I always take the highlight reels with a pinch of salt anyway, because they are exactly that, highlight reels and not the everything reels. And you know what? For what it's worth, I've lost my access to Y-Scout because of their ridiculous payment structure since they've been taken over by HUDL. So I haven't had a chance to really dig into some of these players to the sort of quality that I want to. And it's really annoying me, Y-Scout. It's really annoying me, Huddle. Figure it out. Figure it out. Let's go into the next one. Mikey Moore. Apparently there's an injury expert a doctor, I guess, who has cast his judgment on Mikey Moore's absence. And he basically said it all comes down to what has been the activity that he has created and he has conducted in his absence. And the fact is that if he's been in bed sick, like suffering from some sort of significant virus that we haven't heard about in any detail, and why we haven't heard about it, surely there's red flags there. But based on that kind of presumption, then the absence should be expected to be longer than what we have been thinking, and that's the reason why we still haven't seen anything. So that's obviously a disappointment. We don't know what sort of version of Mikey Moore we're going to get back, do we? It's not going to be nice. Guys, this is supposed to be One Take Tottenham. I promise you, I will come straight back. I've just got to shut the dog up. She's driving me insane. 1 second. Sorry, guys. It annoys me so much when I have to stop up my One Take Tottenham, but for the purposes of figuring out what's wrong with her, she's over there now. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. Let's move on. Mikey Moore, yeah, it doesn't look good, does it? And you never know what you're going to get with a young kid who's been out for so long. He's obviously taken its toll on his body, and it's obviously going to, even if it's not a serious virus or serious illness, whatever it is that's going on, then just the fact that he hasn't really been able to train or anything for such a long time, his match fitness will be so low that I don't think we can expect him back for a while, probably, which is a real shame. Let's move on. Bryan Gil, guys, 23 years old. The story here is that Girona have a €15 million buy option, but apparently, despite him doing fantastically well over there and them being incredibly happy with him, that they're going to ask for a reduction in the fee in order to get the job done, and that Spurs are likely to accept a reduced fee. Makes you wonder, what the hell is the point of having these options when, even if players outperform relative to expectations, and even teams that do have money, that are well financed, that aren't sort of budgetarily constrained. Remember, Girona are under the Manchester City Football Group, the City Football Group empire, and did really well last season. So they're going to be flashed with cash relative to their usual scenario. And £15 million for a Bryan Gil. Okay, he didn't work out in the Premier League. He's not a Premier League player. We should have known that. The frame, the size of the guy, gets blown over by a strong gust of wind. But in Spain, it's a perfect fit. And he's doing really, really well. So €15 million isn't a lot of money to ask. It's £11 million. And yet there's an option there, right? But yet they don't want to take it up despite the outperformance relative to expectations. And Tottenham are willing to possibly agree to that reduction just to get him off the books. It's very strange. But either way, like, I've never understood. But the Bryan Gil deal is such a shame because he's such a talent. He really is a talent. And he's just like a number of other players that we've had that just don't work in the Premier League and that do work in the Spanish system. Like people like Gio Lo Celso, good examples. I wish Tottenham would learn the lesson of looking at things outside of the data. Like, we've gone from a team of scouts that didn't use data, and now we're using data to identify people like KINSKY, who I'm going to come to in a second. But all of these things don't talk about the mentality and don't look at the frame, don't look at the context of the environment in which you're in. And that's why I'm a big proponent of contextual analysis, right? Because you have to bake that stuff in, because there's things that are outside of the individual, or in the case of analysis of Tottenham Hotspur, for example, and why it is that we don't win any trophies. And by the way, I'll be doing a video on that, a live stream, where I want to drop some stats and insights into the last 75 years of trophy success that I've analysed within the English footballing system, and see some of the trends, and maybe it makes some more sense as to why I feel the way I do about this notion that Daniel Levy is the worst thing ever as a chairman because ultimately of our lack of success, when people, I believe, look only too much internally at that analysis and don't look at the things outside of the club, things that are not necessarily in the control of the people who are decision makers, that do affect, do impact, and do have an overarching slice of influence on the narrative of how teams win the success and how teams find success, and why teams that used to be successful are no longer successful. So keep a lookout for that. I hope it will be 6 p.m. tonight, UK time. But yeah, Bryan Gill's out. And like I say, lesson learned, maybe, probably not, but we've got to go and think, are these players going to make it in the Premier League? Are they up to scratch for the style of football that is going to be found in the Premier League? That's why one of the reasons there's a story here again about ALEJO VELIZ. He's going to stay in Espanyol now, apparently. Even though he's not playing over there, there isn't apparently, according to reports, any intention to bring him home and to send him out on loan again. I believe that the best way to get these players ready for the Premier League football and English football is not by playing them in Spain, where there's the language barrier problem removed in the case of ALEJO VELIZ, but ultimately the style of football is chalk and cheese to what you're going to get here. And the Premier League is more physical than, say, the Spanish league, but less physical than, say, the Championship. And I don't understand why we don't try and put more of our players that are people that we have high hopes for, I guess, like ALEJO VELIZ, into the shop window by playing them at a lower level, but of the same physical stature and structure, especially for a guy of that size, where he is more physically kind of dominant, and therefore he's not going to benefit from the speed and the technicality levels of Spain, but he'd be much better off like competing and seeing how he does, in my opinion at least, in the Championship. Let me know your thoughts, guys. Let me know your thoughts. Let's move on to KINSKY, Antonin KINSKY. His first words, I don't know if they were translated or if he speaks English, or whether they were translated from Czech Republic. Is that even a language? No, it's a country. What is the language in Czech Republic? Is it Czech? I guess it's Czech, right? Check that out for me. Let me know. Anyway, he said, I haven't unpacked my bag yet. I'm preparing myself. I'm ready to go. And basically, I haven't got the quotes in front of me because my page filled up too quickly. But in a nutshell, this guy comes across like he's super confident, uber confident, basically saying, I'm ready to play whenever the coach needs. I've done one training session with the goalkeeping coach. He's now going to join up with the squad today. And he's ready to get going. And listen, you love to see confidence from a goalkeeper because that's what you live and breathe on. And unfortunately, someone like Fraser Forster was a confidence keeper who, let's be honest, that confidence was fragile. And at the first sign of distress, and when it all kind of fell apart, he struggled to find it back again. And I think that the next performance against Manchester United, the next performance after Manchester United against Wolves wasn't any steadier. He didn't really kind of recover, and I think that's probably why part of the reason that Tottenham have decided to move on and bring in this goalkeeper. And for what it's worth, also Johan Lange used our new data system, which we've been hearing not enough about. I want to hear more about it because I want to know exactly who we're using, what systems, who are the tools. Is it Y-Scout? Did Y-Scout and Huddle take hold of their money more easily than they took hold of mine? I don't know, but what's wrong with me? What's going on? I'm just a lowly YouTuber, but I still got money. My money still works. Anyway, Matt Law has said that it's this idea that Ange Postecoglou is delusional for his style of football. It's wrong. It's incorrect, and I happen to agree. He says that the injuries are a major influence and a reasonable excuse and justification for what he's going through. Don't forget, Newcastle United went through exactly the same period of horrendous results last season, having suffered 9 injuries to key players at the same time, and Tottenham have suffered more. And as I say, this notion, this rationale that people would like to present to you, who have already made their mind up on Ange Postecoglou, that excuses around injuries are ridiculous because every team goes through them. I would say look at the stats, look at the data, look at the specific context of not just the number of injuries, but the frequency, the length, the disruption to the team and the continuity of positional impact, where you are losing all of your players that are recognised, or most of them, for one position at the same time. It is unique, and those teams that go through similar things suffer similar outcomes. And this idea that, well, we were still losing games when we didn't have the significant injuries over the last 18 months, whilst that might be true, the form and the correlation between the injuries and the consistency of losses is far more specific, far more obvious if you look for it, than if you just have your mind made up and you're trying to kind of fit the narrative around a certain circumstance. So for me, that's not true. I'm gonna have to press pause again because Bugsy's driving me insane. God, this is 3 Take Tottenham today. I hate this. Sorry, 1 second. Right, guys, let me finish this off real quick here. Other people to talk to here about is Heung Min's son, Heung Min daddy. Rumours are that Barcelona, cash-strapped Barcelona, are going to offer this guy a free transfer deal. He's available. He can sign, according to reports. I was under the impression that Tottenham had an option to extend by 1 year, and the fact that that was there would kind of make any kind of ability to sign a pre-contract extension unattainable with a foreign club. But according to reports this morning, that's not the case, and that Barcelona are potentially preparing a 1-year offer, no 2-year offer, to join the club, but where Tottenham wouldn't get any compensation, obviously, because he's free to sign a pre-contract, a pre-agreement. Bugsy, come out! No! And that the inevitability there might happen. I don't think it will. I think Sonny's loyal to Tottenham, and loyalty to a point where Daniel Levy needs to show some back. I don't particularly see anything improving in Son. I think his confidence is at a low ebb. I think he's definitely kind of falling off a cliff a little bit. I think that the age and the pace of the game is catching up with him because it affects him more than it affects most people. But Johnny made a good point last night, though, that the difference in age between him and Mo Salah is negligible, and Salah's probably going through his best period of his career. And so it's not necessarily an excuse, but it might be an explanation. Not everyone is the same. But for me, the fact that Tottenham haven't kind of concluded any contract deals there with Sonny, it seems very strange given the fact that now he could go to Barcelona, he could go and get his last final payday in terms of a juicy salary. Let's be honest, he's never been greedy when it comes to his salaries either, and Tottenham might lose that golden cash cow. Now, obviously, there's the Korean market may stay at Tottenham because they love Tottenham, and for some of them, they may stay because of the new man Yang that's coming in. And there you go, Nick, Lazy 8. I've learnt your word. Yang is the word itself. Hi guys, and that might be the catalyst to say, oh, we'll be okay. But I think that the Yang and Sonny are 2 different beasts when it comes to the generation of that kind of cash cow. There is that Korean money that's coming into the Tottenham coffers every single week, and I just find it bonkers that Tottenham have let this get to the point where it has, where he could now sign a deal with Barcelona, who, let's be honest, every team, every player would love to play for at some point in that lovely shirt of theirs. The last thing I'll say to you guys is STEFAN BORSON, the football finance expert, was once again talking about Tottenham's transfer policy, Tottenham's ownership, Tottenham's takeover in that regard, and about Tottenham's protests. And he basically said that we are stuck with Daniel Levy for a number of reasons, not least of which is the fact that the club is valued at over 3 billion, which, as I said 1,000 times, immediately rules out 99% of potential suitors. The club may generate a lot of money from the stadium and et al., but we're sitting mid-table in the league right now, which isn't a particularly enticing prospect for new owners to come in, although they might see it as, and there's a counter-argument to that, to say, well, it's a sleeping giant that's underperforming, and we could easily accelerate through. I've made the argument many times that it doesn't matter who you have in charge. If Tottenham are one of these teams that can get to 4th but can't push on, there's another never-ending list of teams that can do that same sort of dance where they take themselves from 15th to 5th, but they can't kick on because the gap between the next level is just a little bit too severe, and the draw that those teams have for the very best players, it's much easier for them to convince players to come and be a part of their system because they have a track record of winning trophies. The absence of that makes the rest of the story a little bit more harder to compete with when you're going up for the best players against those sorts of teams, and those best players are the players that you need to close the gap. It's a catch-22, it's a chicken and the egg. It's a very difficult one, difficult circle to square. Newcastle struggle with it, Tottenham has struggled with it. A lot of teams are struggling with that process. But STEFAN BORSON carries on to say that protests are essentially not going to help the situation, not going to help your cause. that Daniel Levy is stuck with us and we're stuck with him because, as the aforementioned rationale, that it's very difficult to convince someone to pay the amount of money when there isn't the low-hanging fruit available. Something I've been saying to you guys for a long time. Whilst I respect and admire the people that want to protest and go out and stand in the cold on January the 31st, Brian Daigle, I'm talking to you. I've always got respect for your ability to do that when you were over here in the years gone past. Ultimately, though, to all of you that do it, I personally don't think that it will have any direct impact. Indirectly, of course, it might create some pressure, and Daniel Levy may end up spending a little bit more money to take the pressure off in that regard, which is obviously a good thing, and it helps the situation. But like I say, Tottenham Hotspur are always in a position to do a little bit more than everybody else in the transfer window because of the situation that Daniel Levy has sort of garnered and harvested in regards his business acumen and his approach to debt and risk and I guess ambition, if you like. And as I say, the main story from today that I want to sort of latch onto is Omar Marmoush. And if we can get that guy in front of Arsenal, who was the other team, then what a wonderful story that would be. And of course, it's going to take something more than just a sales pitch to do so. It's going to take maybe money. And Tottenham are in the healthiest position when it comes to FFP and PSR relative to our competition at that end of the table. And for me, I think it would just be sensational. If you can go and get Omar Marmoush, I know I'm delusional, but it would be absolutely fantastic. In the meantime, the links are still there for Mr. Mwani, for Mr. KHUSANOV. And that's about it. Confidence from Kinskey. Brian Hill on the cheap. Mikey Moore out for longer, allegedly. Evan Ferguson, let me know your thoughts. And Matt Law said, as I say, the people that say that injuries are not an excuse, they're the delusional ones. That's what he says, and I kind of agree. Like, subscribe and comment, guys. And as always, bye-bye!